In the last lesson, you learned why knowledge graphs matter. Now, let's roll up our sleeves and start building one. Before we start, do you need help setting up Memgraph and Memgraph Lab? This email includes a video tutorial to guide you through the process. Follow it and you'll be good to go. Now, on to the graph basics. A graph is built from just three things: nodes, relationships, and properties. Nodes give us the detail about the entities in our graph. Relationships show how they're connected, and properties give us all of the details and the context behind our graph. So let's say we have a sentence: Alice wrote a book called Graph Thinking. We need to transform this sentence into a graph so it makes sense, so it contains all the details, and so we have a context of the sentence within our graph. So first we need to establish the nodes. We can see that we have Alice, who is a person, and that she wrote a certain book. So those are our nodes: a person and a book. Now we need a relationship between those two. The relationship is usually the verb of the sentence. So in our case, a person wrote a book. Now that we have a clear relationship, we can already see that the graph is forming. But you may wonder, okay, but how do I know that this person is Alice, and how do I know which book she wrote? That's where properties come in hand. Properties give us all of the details behind our sentence and behind our graph. So if we provide a property name for either person or a book, we can see that we can put all the details within the properties. So we can say that this person is called Alice and the book she wrote is called Graph Thinking. Simple, right? That is a working knowledge graph. Now let's head over to the Memgraph Lab and start learning some basic Cypher commands so we can transform this graph in Memgraph Lab. And this is Memgraph Lab. Memgraph Lab is a visual interface tool where you can either just visualize your data or you can manage your data from here as well. In the top, you can see the count of the node in the edges you have in your database currently. From the Query Execution tab, you can execute your queries. And in the sidebar, you can see all the features that Memgraph Lab offers. One of the features is the Collections tab, where you can create a collection of your either favorite queries or the ones you use the most. And for today, I prepared a collection of Cypher basic queries we're going to go through today. The first Cypher clause we're going to learn, and I would say the most important clause to learn, is the create clause. Create clause is literally the base of our database. Create clause creates nodes, relationships, and properties as well. So let's say I want to create a person named Annie. This is why Cypher is a really intuitive language, because you write it as you speak it. So I want to create a person named Annie. So everything is quite intuitive when you write it. When we create a single person, that means I want to label it as a person, and labeling comes with a prefix of a column. Then I want to provide a property called name, and I'm going to provide all of the properties within the curly brackets. So this node has a property name, and the value of that property is Annie. And if I run this query, we're going to see that the query was successful and that the node count went up for 1. Okay, great. And now you may wonder, why didn't I just create a node that is labeled Annie? What did I need a label person? That's where you need to think ahead. So I want to think about how am I going to model my data. If I created a person Annie with a label Annie and not a property, how would I filter that person in the future? Let's say I have multiple people in my database, I have multiple companies, maybe I have connections between those nodes, but what if I want to filter all of the people I have in my database? You have to think ahead when modeling your data, because this person label will come in hand later on while filtering our data. And now that brings us to our next clause called match clause. With match clause, you are finding patterns within your database. You are filtering your data and you're finding the nodes that you want to find. So as I mentioned, let's say we have multiple people in our database. which we currently don't, but we will in the future. But let's say we want to match all of the people we have and we want to return the results. The next clause is the return clause. Return clause returns all of the results were filtered or matched in our database. So here we matched all of the people with the label person, and we want to return all of those people. So let's say when we run the query, you can see that the query was successful and we have a result of one person called Annie. And that's it. This is the match clause. Now, as I said, we have a quite small database so far. I think it doesn't get smaller than this other than having no database at all. But let's say we now want to create a bit bigger graph. We want to create a few nodes and we want to create some relationships as well. So here you can see that we want to create multiple people. So we want to create Alice, Bob, and Carol. And we want to create other labels. So we want to create a book label as well. So we can connect those people with the books. So Alice wrote a book, Bob read a book that Alice wrote, and Carol read some other book. I don't know who wrote that one. But let's create this graph in our database. If I run this query, you're going to see that the node count went up and the edge count now went up as well. So we created 5 new nodes and 3 new edges or relationships. And okay, now I see that the count went up, but I don't see my graph. Like, how do I know what did I create? Well, you can do that by visualizing your graph with match clause and return clause. So in this query, I'm matching all of the nodes that have any relationships with any other nodes. And I want to return all of those nodes, relationships, and edges. So I'm returning the entire path of the graph. Let's say now if I run this query, oh, boom, I can now see my graph results. I can visualize the data that I just created. So we can see that Bob read the book that Alice wrote. And you notice when I click on certain node, its properties come up on the side. So book is called Graph Thinking, and Bob read that book. Carol read some other book called Cypher 101. So our graph is not completely connected, as you can see, because we have no clear connection between Carol, Alice, or Carol and Bob. And maybe if Carol read Graph Thinking, she would have connection with them as well. I hope I now helped you how to create a small graph in Memgraph, and now it's your turn. Create a mini graph with at least 5 nodes, and each of the nodes have its label. Make sure we have at least 2 to 3 labels. We want few relationships between those nodes, and we want to visualize our graph. If you need an idea, maybe you can connect people with the cities they live in, or the companies they work for, or the people they have connections with. Just play around. The best way to learn is to build. In the next lesson, we'll dive into schema thinking, defining the entity and relationship types in your graph, and how Memgraph helps you visualize them. See you in our next lesson, and until then, keep thinking in graphs.